Hey everybody, Joe here. Nice of you to join me today. Thanks for coming. It's getting cloudy in here. Come on, focus in. Thank you very much. What we're going to be looking at is the CETO, CETO RDA from Cthulhu Mods. Now, this is a mesh RDA. Now, what the heck is a mesh RDA? Okay. Back in the day, back when they used to use mesh, and I'll explain what mesh is in a minute, they used to use it for wicking material, kind of like what we use cotton and silica for now. Those were what they used to use in Genesis type of atomizers. Now, there are still a lot of people out there who love their jennies and still swear by their jennies. But most of us nowadays either are using cotton, some of us are using ceramic, some of us are using cotton ceramic hybrid coils, mostly in stock coil RDA, RTAs. There are some of us out there who are still using silica wick. Why? I don't know, but there are. Hey, whatever floats your boat. That's the idea of vaping. But there's still a lot of people out there who are using mesh. Now, what is mesh? Well, let me get a piece out here. This is mesh. Let me try and get that to focus in there. This is a piece of wire mesh. This is what they call 80 count wire mesh. It's basically kind of like the same stuff that you use on your windows in screening to keep out the bugs during the summertime. Now, you're going to say, huh? Say what? Yeah, that's kind of what I said too. A while back, I'd say about maybe a year or so ago, I have been watching some old reviews on Genesis atomizers and for basically like for a coil. Well, sure enough, that's what somebody came up with. The first tank slash atomizer that came out recently was the Typhoon. I think it was BTO. About maybe 3-4 months ago, I think it was. Now, that used stainless steel cabling stuck down into an RDTA tank to wick up the juice, and then it got to the cotton, and then there was this piece of cotton, this big lump of cotton that sat on top of these stainless steel cables. That wicked up juice from the stainless steel cables, and that was surrounded by some of the mesh like I just showed you. Well, Cthulhu looked at that, and I guess they said, there's an idea. So they came up with the CETO tank. Well, the CETO dripper, I should say. It's not a tank. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. Basically, there's this big lump of cotton in there that's surrounded by that mesh material that I just showed you. Got some issues with this. I got some issues with this, but more about that later on when we come back up to FaceTime. So, without any further ado, now that you've got a basic idea of what we're going to be looking at here, let's head on down to the build deck and take a look and see what we're going to be actually playing with, okay? And then we'll take it from there, all right? So, without any further ado, meet you down below decks. Okay, folks, here we are. We're looking at the CETO, CETO RDA by Cthulhu Mods. When you buy this from whatever vendor you're going to be buying it from, if you decide to ever buy it, this is how it's going to come. It comes in this canvas covered box. It's really a beautiful little box. You have this padded piece here on the bottom. As you can see, there are no other markings on here at all other than this little plastic dot which is glued to the top of the box. You access this by taking this little tassel and pulling on the bottom of the box like so. You pull this back out of the way. On here you have this little Chinese coin that is kind of wrapped around the tassel here to help you open it without any issues. And on the inside you get the CETO RDA scratch and check. Okay. Now you also get this package of 2 pieces of 300 count 304 stainless steel. Now this label that you see on here, this is for me, and I'll explain to you the reason why in a few minutes. But you get this package of 2 sheets of, it's like about 2 inches by, well actually more like about 4 inches by 2 inches, 300 count 304 stainless steel mesh. In the bottom here, you also get a little blue Phillips screwdriver, a 510 drip tip adapter, which I'm going to be pulling out in a minute, a whole mess of O-rings, and both silicone and nitrile, and you also get a squonk pin and a squonk post. Now I'm going to pull out this 510 adapter, put that over here. Now while I'm here, let me just pull out the squonk pin and the squonk post so you can get a little bit better look at this. Okay, this is the squonk pin. Now this goes down here where your normal 510 pin goes in. Now this goes in here and it sticks up into the deck, which I'll show you in a minute here, and with a lot of threading showing on there. You will then take this squonk post and turn it onto the screws like so. What this is for is that when you go to squonk or send your juice up through the bottom, it's going to send it up through this little hole here and up into this post. Now this post has these big massive holes in it here, these 4 big massive holes. And what happens is the juice comes up and starts pouring out these holes and into your cotton. Now the reason why they have these things as big as they are is if without cotton on here, the juice would never pretty much get past this first hole. It just come pouring out here, maybe a little come out this one here. Okay? But with the cotton on there, there's a restriction, a resistance around these holes. So what happens is there's enough resistance here so that way some of the juice comes seeping out into the cotton here, but there's resistance, so that allows it to come up here to this hole. There's resistance here, comes out this hole, there's resistance that comes out this hole, there's resistance. And then finally what happens, you have some of the juice pouring out of the top of this post here, like so. As you can see, I'm just putting a tweezer in there and you can see that this is totally hollow. This is a great little innovation. Seriously, a great innovation. I really like this idea a lot. However, as we'll discuss a little bit further on when we get back up to FaceTime, this has got some serious issues. So I'm going to put this over here for a minute or two, just to turn around, just so I can show you what's going on. Now this is the actual RDA itself. Let me put this on here so we can take a look at it better. Well, actually, let me first take this off here. As you can see here, we have a 510. This 510 does protrude quite a bit, so it would be perfectly fine to use on a hybrid mechanical mod. This is all stainless steel. The black one, the threads are not painted on here. Yes, this comes in black as well, and allowing for quite good electrical connections, so you don't have to worry about any issue like that. And as you can see here, you have CETO RDA, you have the serial number, CE, don't vape in a bin, and this other little screw here, which is basically your negative terminal set screw. Okay? On the barrel here, you have 5 little teardrop holes. These are your air holes. Okay? When you turn this, I'm going to see if I can try and turn this, because this is these. Oh, sorry about that. Bumped the camera. These air holes are very, very hard. And even when they're lubed up, which this is right now, to turn, I have to basically use one of these little plastic RDA / tank wrenches to be able to turn this. Now, as you can see, as I turn this top successively, you have more and more of these little teardrops here that close off. Eventually you get to the point where you have only 2 holes open. This one over here and this one over here, which means you can never really get this thing down to a point where you only have just one of these teardrops open. There's always going to be a minimum of 2. This thing is extremely airy. It's either extremely airy or it's cooking liquid. Now, as you can see here, I've got quite a bit of VG on here to act as a lubricant, but as you can see also, I still have a lot of problems here with trying to get this thing to turn. They really could have used some knurling on this top piece here to make it easier for people to actually turn this and adjust this. I think cutting the grooves in here for the silicone O-rings that they have putting tension on here would have also been a good idea, because either that or use slightly thinner O-rings. I don't think they really could have used thinner O-rings, because these things are pretty damn thin as it is. So I think actually just cutting the slits in here that the O-rings sit into, the channels, the grooves, just a hair deeper would have actually been a better idea. It would have loosened this thing up considerably, and it would have allowed, well, here, now it's turning slightly, but it's still turning, it's still a pain in the butt to try and get this thing to turn. But yeah, pull that out. Now let's take a look on the inside here. As you can see, you have your 5 teardrop holes here for the airflow. The top cap here is very heavily domed. I really like this a lot. This is very good. If this was not domed the way it is, this thing would probably have no flavor at all. Okay? I'm going to say it right here, right now. Without this doming in here, this thing would probably have very little, if any, flavor. Now, as you can see, this also uses an 810 or goon style drip tip in here. You can also put in your 510 drip tip adapter, which I am going to do here now. And that's pretty much your top piece. Now, this is the barrel. Let me put it on here. It makes it a little easier to do. This thing is a bear and a half to get off. As you can see here on the deck, you have 2. These aren't even really big O-rings. They're pretty decent size O-rings, normal size O-rings. The only problem is that 2 of them is one too many. We'll get to more of that in a minute. As you can see here, you have a little bit of a ledge here, which separates the bottom of the deck, which comes up to here, and the airflow adjustment, which comes in here. 304 stainless, got no problems with it. It's milled very nicely. The finishing work on this is superb. Now, let's take a look at the deck. This is your positive post here. This is your negative post here. The positive post fits into a peak insulator in here, which is held in place by the 510 center pin. Now, if I take this out, like so, and we remove this 510 center pin as if we're going to be putting in the squonk pin. All right, so we take this center pin out. As you can see, there is a piece of PEEK that separates the 510 center pin from the negative side of the 510 connector. That protrudes ever so slightly above the outer piece of the 510. So when you pop this center pin or the squonk pin in, it rides up proud. So that makes it nice and easy. Now, as you can see, that is your positive terminal. That fits into this PEEK insulator in here, which I'm just going to take out real quick. It does come out. Okay, there's the 510 PEEK insulator for the center pin. And as you see here, this little Phillips head screw here, this anchors in the negative block. So this entire catch cup area here was milled, was CNC'd separately, and then the posts were added in later. Now, for just to be a completionist here, I am going to measure the depth of this catch cup in here, and that comes out to 8.1 to 8.3 millimeters in depth. The inside diameter of the juice well is 19.85 millimeters across. So yeah, you actually have a pretty deep juice well, and I measured it not here to the bottom of the where the posts are sticking up out of, but down into the bottom of this juice well. So yeah, it's a pretty deep juice well, and that therein lies another issue with this RTA. More about that in a minute. Now that we have the center pin out of here, the 510 center pin out of here, what we're going to do is I'm going to put in this squonk kit, so to speak. You're just going to slide the 510 pin in here, hold that into place, make sure the ultim insulator is down in place, and then you're going to take this and you're going to put this in like so and press this down into place, and then you're going to screw this up, if I can do this before it slips out of my hand with all this VG I've got on me, and we're just going to screw this into place here. Now, why is this not screwing into place properly? There we go. Okay, so 510 pin screws into place, and because of the threading on the positive terminal here, holds into place like so. Now, as you can see, this 510, this squonking 510 center pin sticks up quite a ways off of here. And the reason for that is because this screws onto here. Now I'm going to have to get another screwdriver here because this is a rather wide straight blade screwdriver here. And then you just turn that on there like so. Now if you go back to the live broadcast that I basically did back on, I think it was July 24th or something like that, you'll see me taking this out of the package for the very first time and playing around with it. Basically what I did was I took a piece of Muji cotton and cut it in half lengthwise, wrapped half of it around here, minus of course the two hard sides of it, and then wrapped it again around it. Now that worked pretty good, okay? It really did. However, it didn't work totally well. This is a piece of mesh that I have been using with that incarnation. As you can see here, I burned this out so that way it would not have any machining oils. This piece of mesh is the same piece of mesh that came from in here. You see these brown marks here? That's because when I put the cotton on here by just wrapping it around, I didn't get cotton in all of the areas. There was a little void right here where the mesh came around and went into the post here. I'll show you that in a minute. And that caused this thing to burn very heavily here on this side. And believe me, the flavor that was coming out of this was anything but great. So the first thing that you have to remember if you decide that you ever want to try this is to make sure that you have cotton coming in contact with this mesh in every place that it possibly can. So when this is stuck in here like so, and this wraps around, this little area here, right in here, has got cotton in here. If you don't, the flavor is going to be very polite about it, anything less than stellar. Now, after playing around with this for a while, I have found that the best length of mesh to be used in here is a piece of mesh that measures 1 centimeter high by 3 centimeters long. Now, you can use a little bit larger. You can generally take this thing up to about 4 centimeters in length, but that's going to be pushing it because that's going to be very, very close to the inside of this barrel. Okay? I generally suggest sticking with 3 centimeters, because, and I'll show you the reason why in a minute. It's twofold. So now that you see how this is, oh, and by the way, when you take it, the best type of wicking to use on this is to put your mesh in here, which I'll show you how to do in a minute, and then take something like this, cotton bacon, or where is it? This stuff, native wicks, something like that. Put your mesh in, take this stuff, and just stuff it in there. Make sure you get stuff into the back here as well, into this back area. Stuff that in here and kind of pack it in as well. More about this in a minute or two. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So let me just take this thing out of this squonk mode here, and we're just going to put this thing into its regular RDA mode. There we go. All nice and back. So now it is no longer a squonker. It is now just a plain RDA. Now, I have used the 300 mesh that came with this, which is this stuff here. I've also tried a couple of other things. Now, you remember I said that I found that the best piece of mesh to use in here is one that happens to be 1 centimeter wide or tall. Well, guess what? That's what this is. And this piece here came off of this Vandy Vape's mesh wire. This is being sold by quite a few places. It's roughly $5 a roll. It comes 5 feet long. It's 80 mesh, which means that there's 80 strands of wire, both vertical and horizontal, per inch, and it comes out to 2.8 ohms per foot. Now, this piece that I have here is roughly 0.22 ohms. So if any of you folks out there are vaping your RDAs and RTAs, etc., ad nauseum, in the 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 8, 9 ohm range, this dripper / squonker ain't for you, because 0.22 ohms is the highest resistance value that I was able to get out of this dripper, okay? And that was with this 80 mesh. This 300 mesh that I have here, which is from this piece that's over here, this was generally ohming out at approximately 0.15 to 0.17. When it first came out of the package and I put it on there before I hit the fire button to burn off the oxidation and oils and machining oils and all that kind of stuff, it was measuring 0.17. As soon as I fired this thing, it went down to 0.15 ohms. Now, I don't like vaping on something that low. I'm sorry, I really don't. The most I will go down to is 0.2 ohms, which is basically what this is. Okay, this is 0.22 ohms. So I've been having a real issue with using mesh as a heating element. Okay, I went out and I bought pieces of mesh to play around with. I went out and I bought a piece of 400 mesh. I bought a piece of 200 by 200 mesh. I bought a piece of 325 by 325 mesh to see what was going on with the resistance levels. And I'm going to do another entire video on all of this stuff in the near future. But suffice it to say, the highest thing that I was actually able to get was this piece here, which came off of this spool of Vape mesh wire, and that was 0.22 ohms. All right, so what we're going to do now is, instead of using this piece here, I'm going to take and I'm going to pull off another piece of brand new stuff here. And I'm going to cheat using my little handy dandy trusty little template here. Let me just get myself a pair of scissors here, and I'm going to cut off a nice piece here. So there we go, 3 centimeters. I'm going to put this back here so that way I don't lose it. Now you notice this canthal is very, very dark, grayish, almost gunmetal color. I don't know why. I don't know if it's oxidation or what, but yeah, this thing, the nichrome is a lot shinier. The stainless steel is even shinier still, but then of course stainless steel being stainless steel. I think this has to do with a lot of oxidation due to a lot of the heavy-duty humid weather that we've been having here in Jersey for the last couple of New Jersey in the last month or so since I got this stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take this, and just like as if you were working with ribbon on Christmas packages, I'm just going to run this like so, and you see it starts to pick up this little bit of a curl. Okay, so I'm just going to do that. This actually helps out quite a bit when you're working with this. So let me move these squonk pins out of the way here. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to loosen up these 4 set screws here. Now these 4 set screws have seen a lot of action in the last couple of weeks. Actually, they're almost to the point where there's the Phillips heads on these things are pretty stripped. Unfortunately, they only give you 2 extra grub screws in here. So if you start to strip on these things, yeah, good luck. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to take this and you're going to open this up, this clamp here, and you're going to take this. This is 1 centimeter wide, which is exactly what Cthulhu suggests. And you're going to put it in between these 2 set screws here. And you have to be very careful to make sure that this thing is even and level when you do this, because otherwise it's going to screw everything up here. So you're going to take this and you're going to tighten this down now, like so. Make sure you tighten this down, because if you don't tighten this clamp down, you're going to get hot spots like crazy on this. And as you can see, it's not exactly straight. So I'm going to have to loosen this up a little bit and straighten this up so that way it comes off at right angles to this post. So you have the post like so, and this needs to come at right angles like so. Not like that, but straight like so. So we're going to take this and tighten that down, and we're going to come over here and we're going to open up that clamp, and we're going to take the mesh and we're going to feed it in here between these 2 clamp holes like so, and get it in position, and then tighten this into position. Now you're going to see here that this is pretty limp and loose in here. There's not much room in here. The reason for that is that this thing uses a lot of cotton. It also uses and wastes a lot of juice. More about that in a minute. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this and we're going to take some of this cotton and we're going to compress this down like so. And we're going to feed this in here like this. Now, as you can see, just feeding this in here like this, like so. And this is one full piece of cotton. So you just feed that in like so. That's the reason why I suggested this 3. This 3 centimeters as opposed to something bigger. Because if you use something bigger, you're going to have to feed it over and you're going to have to press it in. Now you want to cut this off here, right here at the top of that post. And then you want to take your tweezers and you want to fluff this out like so. And you want to make sure you got some of this stuff down here onto the deck and going into that juice well, like so. Okay? Like so, like so. Now you remember I told you you want to make sure you get some of this cotton in here, into this area here, like that. You want to make sure that you get your tweezers in here and press that into, like so, to make sure that you have cotton coming in contact with that wick at all points around here. If you don't, you are not going to like the results. It's kind of a cross between hot metal, burning hot metal, almost combusting juice, and the dry hit from hell. Yeah, it's kind of like all of the above. So it's not very pleasant. So you want to make sure that this has cotton fluffed over the top of this mesh and under the bottom here, and you want to make sure this is fluffed out and into there like that. That's how you want it to look. Now, I'm going to pop this on here. Yeah, I should have burnt this in before I did anything. So let me just pull this out of here. Pop that to one side. Duh. Should have burnt this in beforehand. Well, we're going to have some burnt cotton threads here in about 2 seconds. And all we need to do is there we go. There's the cotton going up in flames, and we just turn around and we just blow out this wire like so. And that's it. Any stuff that was on here from the manufacturing is gone, and that's pretty much it. So we're going to take this and we're going to do the same thing we just did before, and we're just going to this nice thing about this stuff, though, it does turn around and cool down very quickly, unlike stainless steel or Canthol wire, regular round wire, or like Clapton wire or anything like that. This stuff cools down real quick, so you can just come in here and do this nice and quickly. Now you want to have some room in here. Like I said, you want to make sure you got cotton in here coming in contact with that mesh at all points, like so. You want to have cotton coming down into that juice well so you can pick up any juice that might be in there. And just want to make sure you got some cotton in here. Now, I don't bother putting any extra in here. You can if you do. If you want to, you can fold it over and put some in there. but to me it's superfluous because it's not coming in contact with any of the heating elements. So we just want to trim that, take that off. Make sure you keep your finger away from that fire button. You want to fluff this out like so, so that way you have this nice big mass of fluffy cotton here hanging out over the top of the wire. Get some of this excess stuff out of the way here. And that's it. Now we take some of this. Now this takes a lot of juice. As you can see here, watch as it goes in. This takes a lot of juice to get this thing thoroughly saturated. And it doesn't use up all of the juice that you put in here. Now, you can put in as much as 2 or 2.5 milliliters of juice in here. You want to put some of this juice not all over the vape mat. Good stuff. You want to get some of this juice onto the mesh itself so it will soak through that mesh and to the cotton that is directly underneath of that mesh, like so. Put some more here on the top, put some more here in the bottom. Now, as I was saying, the problem here with this vertical wicking and with this vertical heating element is that if you let this sit for a few minutes, gravity starts to work on this, and all this juice that's up here on the top starts to go down and go down here into this juice well area. Now, when you start firing it, you would normally expect this juice to be wicked up into the heating element. Well, it does, but not as the same way that a tightly packed wick on a coil of flat wire or round wire or whatever would do. And there we go. It is heating and it is producing vapors. Now this is 0.18 and 50 watts. Yes, 50 watts. That's another issue about this thing we're going to get to in a minute. So we're going to put this on here, and let me put a little juice on these O-rings, like so, because this is another issue here that this thing has. Just like the O-rings on the airflow adapter cap, these O-rings are extremely tight. So we're going to take this and we're going to find, you see we have 5 of them here. You're going to find the centerpiece and you're going to line it up here with the V, the center of the V, like so. So that way you have the air coming in here, hitting it this side, hitting it this side, and hitting it all here around the where the mesh is. Then we're going to take our cap, we're going to do the same thing, the center teardrop with the center teardrop, pop that in like so, adjust the airflow so now we have all 5 of those airflows open. And I'm just going to pop in a 510 drip tip in here. That one doesn't want to fit for some reason. Let's see. Do I have another 510 here? There we go. Pop that there. I'll just throw this in here like that. Okay, so yes, so we've got this wicked, we've got it juiced, we've got it meshed. Let's head on back topside and vape this thing and start discussing some of the shortcomings that this thing has. Yeah, meet you topside. Okay, here we are back topside again. Let me move that out of the way. So here we are, we've got our CETO mod from Cthulhu sitting on top of a Kanger K-Box 160, is at 0.18 ohms and 50 watts. There you go. Yeah, let's just take a vape on it and see what we got here. It is very airy. Very airy. As you can see, it had some pretty decent cloud production. Temperature on the mod is pretty good. But flavor is very, very weak. And that's because this thing is so airy. I'm going to bring this thing up to approximately 65 watts. There we go. 65 watts. And let's see how this works. Yeah, cloud's a little bit better. Flavor's a little bit better. Temperature's a little bit hotter. Not much, but a little bit hotter. Yes, what you're seeing me do here is I'm just taking the 510 drip tip adapter off, like so, and just dropping a whole mess of juice onto that that cotton wick that was sticking out the top. Yeah, let's bring this up to 75 watts. I kind of overshot there a little bit. 75 watts. 0.18 ohms. So let's take a look and see how this works. Flavor's starting to get a little bit better. Temperature's also going up. Cloud production is very good. It's doing its job. Yeah, it's working very nicely. And it's clouding out the room fairly well. But my point here, as I bring this up to 90 watts, is that this thing needs, this mesh, at least on this dripper, needs wattage. If you don't hit this thing with wattage, you're not going to get anything out of it. Seriously. And it gets hot real quick. Yes, the flavor is considerably better now than it was at the 50 watts that I was just vaping at when we started this. Considerably better. However, it is nowhere near what this AMET 25 single coil produces in flavor. The juice that I have in here is the same exact juice that I have in here, which is my black and blueberry vanilla bean gelato. The flavor coming off of this thing is very weak. The flavor coming off of this thing is very heavily saturated, very full-bodied, a whole hell of a lot better. This is airy as all get out. Now, to take care of that issue, what we're going to do is I'm going to take this, and I'm using this wrench because the lack of knurling on the top of this thing does not allow for ease of turning this when you have very juicy fingers. Now, I have just closed off that one there and that one over here. I've closed off 2 of these 5 air holes. Now, I'm going to take this top cap off, and I'm going to readjust this wicking material here a little bit. And I'm going to readjust this that way the center of those 3 air holes that are left open goes here into the middle of the V produced by the positive and negative terminals. So that way the air is coming straight in at it. Excuse me. Juicy fingers. That's something I don't like about this either. Let's take a vape on this. Okay. The flavor on this has just gone up considerably. It's very close to where this Amit is. However, the temperature of the vape has also gone up considerably. It's almost to the point where this child personally would not be playing with it at this wattage. Not exactly my cup of tea. Now, as I showed you, this is coming out of 0.18. If I make that mesh a little bit bigger, okay, a little longer, take it up to about 3.5 centimeters, about 3.5 centimeters, I can get it to 0.22 ohms, which gives a little bit better flavor, a little bit better saturation on the vape. I can actually leave this with 4 open and still get good flavor and everything else. Yeah. One thing I also forgot to say. Remember I alluded when I first showed you this to those 2 O-rings that are on here? I have them on here right now because this is the way it came out of the package. All the time that I had been testing this, that bottom O-ring I removed. Because, well, I had to remove it. It got clipped in half, putting this thing on. I was rocking it with 1 O-ring. Never had a problem with it. All the time I was squonking with it. All the time I was dripping with it. You don't need that second O-ring on there. You really don't. That second O-ring is major pain in the you-know-what. And it makes it hard to get this cap off, to drip it, to inspect to see what's going on with it when you're doing it in squonk mode. Now, one other thing about this. When you're using this thing in squonk mode, or even in dripper mode, as I said before, gravity takes a full effect on this juice if you have it sit for a few minutes. So what happens is the juice travels down under the force of gravity, down the wicking material, starts pooling at the bottom. Now, unless you're vaping this thing at about 90 watts or so, like I'm doing right now, you're not going to pull that juice back up those wicks. And what happens is the juice starts thinning out and the juice at the top starts flowing down into the wick. And what happens is you wind up vaping out all the juice at the top of the cotton. and pulling the juice up from the very bottom of the cotton very slowly. So what happens is you can wind up actually having juice in your wick and getting the dry hit from hell. This RDA, with its new technology using mesh in here, has a lot of potential. Has a lot of potential. You just have to find the right combination of mesh to use and the right amount of wicking to use in here with it. You can't use 400 mesh on this thing. The ohms reading on this thing, even with 3.5 centimeter long heating element in here, is just way too low, especially if you're using the stainless steel. If you're using stainless steel 304, 316, 316L, 317, 317L, the resistance level is so low that your mod may not accept it unless you use the 3.5 centimeter, maybe even 4 centimeters, which means you're going to use a hell of a lot of cotton. You're going to use basically this cotton doubled over like so to something that thick and stuffed in there. That will hold, that piece that I just showed you there, will hold, when fully saturated, approximately 2.5 milliliters of juice, which it will not fully give you back as vapor. If you have to change that cotton to another piece of cotton, when you pull that out, it's still going to have juice in there, and there's going to be juice all over the place, and that juice is going to be lost to you. And not only that, but if you take and lower the amount of airflow coming into this thing, and you're vaping it on high wattage, not only do you run the chance of having the dry hit from hell while still having juice in the cotton, but you also wind up cooking what's down here at the bottom. Yeah, basically, this has got a lot of potential. This mesh has got a lot of potential. However, not in this configuration. This is a very good little dripper. It's a very nice little dripper. It's extremely well made. Okay? The machining on this thing is fantastic. The tolerances on it are fantastic. Like I said, the grooves for the O-rings could be a little bit deeper, just a hair deeper, maybe 1/100 of a millimeter deeper, to allow for the cap to go on and the airflow to spin a little bit more easily. A little knurling on this piece up here at the top where the airflow adjustment is would make this thing fantastic, but I'm going to have to give this thing a neutral rating here. Thumbs up, thumbs down as well. Because it does work. It works very well. The quality of the dripper itself is extremely good. I love the way that the idea that they came up with for the squonking pin on here. I really like that a lot. Has a lot of potential. It's just that it doesn't work exactly right. If we can find the right combination of mesh. Now, like I said, this 80 mesh Canthol at 2.8 ohms per foot is starting to get there. And I noticed that the lower the mesh count, down from 300, which came in with it, down to this 80, the ohms value is going up. Okay. Also the fact that the 300 is stainless steel 304 and the 80 count is Canthol. But the seems that the lower down in count that you go, from 400 to 300 to 200, the ohmeric value starts to rise up. If we can turn around and do something like with stainless steel in an 80 or a 75 count, not only will it give you larger holes in the mesh to allow for the vapor to come out better and give you better vapor production, but it'll also give you a higher resistance, so you'll be able to turn around and get something like at a 0.3 or a 0.4 ohms level, which most vapors nowadays will do. If you use something at about 3 centimeters long, a piece of that that heating element at 3 centimeters long, like I just did here, you can get away with a modest amount of cotton in there, so you don't wind up wasting too much juice. Okay, it has potential. We need to work with this technology a little bit more, and it will work rather well, I think. Now, yesterday, I got in the Vape mesh, which I'm going to be doing another review on. But like I said, I just got this in yesterday, so I have to play with it. I just opened it up to take a look at it. That one uses a horizontal layout, whereas the cotton on this is vertical. That's horizontal. That's also a squonkable RDA, like this is. So what I'm going to do is when I get this one here, test it out, I've played with it enough, I'm going to turn around and give you a review on that, and then I'm going to come back and visit both of these RDAs and discuss more in depth what the differences are between the two of them, what's good, what's bad, what could be changed here and there. I also want to do a little tutorial on this mesh of some of the stuff that I've been playing with and some of the things that I've been finding with it. Granted, I'm just using the resistance ohm meter that's in here, that's in my Squonk mod, and this is not accurate. I have here a regular standard electronics technician's VOM. This tells me that I'm getting on this piece here, that's telling me it's 0.335 ohms for this, and this is telling me 0.22 ohms. This is not very accurate. About a week or so ago, I was saying in a chat, I think it was on one of the other reviewers' vlogs or something like that, that I would really like to see somebody come out with a DNA 75 color screen, which we know the resistance ohm meter, the ohm meter in these things is damn near spot on, because I've checked this against the other ohm meter, and it's within a couple of thousandths of an ohm difference. Also checked it against my USA ohms meter here. This and this jive within a couple of thousandths of an ohm, and jives with this within a couple of thousandths of an ohms, give or take. Parallel 2700, parallel 21700, something like that. 18650, 26650, something like that. But parallel 75, 85 watts. I would really like to see them come out with a DNA color chip that uses, that you can use parallel 18650s. I got to come up with a way of keeping this thing from going all over the place. Parallel 18650s, 26650s, 27700s, 21700s, that we could turn around and get them to get up to about 120 watts as opposed to just 70 watts. That would be fantastic. Then this technology with a couple of tweaks and a couple of changes, would actually be able to work good. All right, I've jabbered my jowls enough here. I'm going to chop off of here now. I've got a lot of editing to do. According to this, it's an hour and 5 minutes that I've been talking here straight through. I have to chop this thing up and start doing some editing and stuff like that on this thing, so it's going to be a while. That's what I've got for you. My recommendation on this is a neutral recommendation. If you like a lot of clouds and you like vaping high wattage with low ohms, then this thing here, the CETO RDA, keep getting that mixed up, would actually work good for you. Just be careful about making sure that this thing stays juiced up, okay? Also, take off that bottom O-ring here on the deck. It's totally not necessarily, and it'll save you having to wind up losing one of the O-rings like I did. Okay, that's it. Take care. God bless. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be ever at your back. May the Lord hold you in the hollow of his hand, and may you be in heaven a half an hour before the devil knows you're dead. Take care, folks. Thanks for stopping by. Be good. God bless. Bye for now.